Hey guys, YouTuber 100 here. And yeah, it's been like 3 weeks now since I have made a video. Yeah, sorry that I haven't made a video for the last 3 weeks. It's just that I've had like a little bit of stuff going on the last few weeks. But yeah, I'm finally back now. And yeah, and we're coming to the end of July now. Yeah, and like before July actually ends, like there are like a few videos that I do want to make before the month ends. Yeah, and a few of those videos are actually some retro pay per view reviews. So yeah, so here I am to make one. Yeah, and for this review, this is going to be a review for Vengeance 2005. So I just wanted to like make a retro Vengeance review during July, since usually like July was the month that like Vengeance was the pay per view for July back during its like original run. So yeah, so here I am to make a retro Vengeance review. Yeah, and like I said, this is going to be a review for Vengeance 2005. So yeah, what can I say about the show? I mean, this really is like a pretty great pay per view. Like this really is like this really is like one of the best pay per views of the original brand extension. Such a really awesome show. A lot of people have really said like this was like Raw's best pay per view of all time. Man, and quite frankly, like I can't really say that I disagree. Like I really do think that it very well may be. Yeah, I mean, this really was just like a really a great pay per view. Like Vengeance really did have like a great track record or during its original run. Like Vengeance 2002, which I've talked about before, that was a pretty good to great show. Vengeance 2003 was a great show. Vengeance 2004 was also a pretty good show. Which yeah, I haven't actually reviewed that, but yeah, I may review that maybe probably next year. Yeah, and this one was also like a really great pay per view as well. Like yeah, this really was just like a really awesome show. Like I said, I really do like would probably agree that this really is like the best Raw pay per view of all time. Yeah, I mean, just it really was just like such an awesome show. Like you had like some really solid matches on the show. Like you really didn't have like anything bad on the show. Maybe you had like a couple of matches that really like were not all that great, but yeah, they weren't like terrible matches. So yeah, so just really just this show really was like a pretty solid all of it from start to finish. Like, yeah, I really didn't. There really wasn't anything on the show that I really did find like truly bad, and especially like when it gets to like the last three matches of the show. Yeah, it really is like a pretty awesome pay per view. So yeah, just what can I really say about the show? Like, it really was just like a really awesome show. Like, yeah, just really did enjoy the show a lot, and yeah, and just really like yeah, it really did have like some pretty awesome matches on the show, and just like a really great show all around. So yeah, so like I said, I really would probably agree that this was Raw's best pay per view of all time, and yeah, and this really was just like another example of like how great Raw really was at this time, and how why like '04 and '05 really were like was like a really awesome time for Raw. Like I've said before, Raw really was like really great during this time, while SmackDown really was like pretty bad. Like I've said it before, how Raw really was just like really on fire during this time, while SmackDown sucked in '04 and '05. Like there are like some people that really do like still try to say that SmackDown was better than Raw at this time. No, it wasn't. SmackDown sucked at this time, and Raw was clearly the better show at this point. So yeah, so all those SmackDown fanboys can really just shut up, because yeah, Raw was clearly better at this time, and this show is another example of that. So yeah, so just what can I really say? Just a really awesome show, and a show that is definitely worth checking out. So yeah, so if you haven't seen this show before, definitely give it a watch, because it really is just like such an awesome show, and another example of how awesome Raw was at this time. All right. So yeah, so I guess I'll just start talking about the matches. All right. So the show opened up with the Intercontinental Championship on the line, with Carlito defending against a Shelton Benjamin. And yeah, and overall, I'd say that this was a pretty good opener. Yeah, a really nice way to open the show. Like it had some pretty good back and forth action between the two guys. Nice. It wasn't like really anything like truly great about it. Like I do think that probably these guys were probably capable of giving us a better match. But yeah, but I do think Shelton Benjamin actually was wrestling in this match hurt. Like I think he may have hurt himself on the previous Raw. So yeah, so I think that's the reason why this match probably wasn't as great as it probably could have been. But yeah, but it was still overall a pretty good match. Yeah, had some really good back and forth action between the two guys. It really did just go back and forth, and then it ended with Carlito exposing the steel from one of the turnbuckles, and then Shelton Benjamin then tried to go for a stinger splash onto Carlito. Carlito moved out of the way, and then Shelton Benjamin head Shelton Benjamin's head rammed the exposed steel in the turnbuckle. Yeah, and then Carlito then rolled up Shelton Benjamin and pinned him. So yeah, so so Carlito ended up winning, and Carlito retained the Intercontinental Championship. So yeah, so like I said, this really was a pretty good match. Not as great as it probably could have been, but yeah, like I said, that was probably due to Shelton Benjamin, I think, being hurt in this match. But yeah, it was still overall still a pretty good match and a nice way to open up the show. So yeah, so I would probably give that match around 3.25. Yeah. And then after this, then we had it was Victoria versus Christy Hemme. And this was just fine. Yeah, this match really wasn't anything that good, as you would probably expect. But yeah, but it wasn't absolutely horrible. Like for a Chrissy Hemme match, it was actually pretty decent. Yeah, because Chrissy Hemme really was just she really didn't have a lot of talent in the ring. So yeah, so by her standards, this was actually a pretty decent match. It kind of just did go back and forth for about 5 minutes or so. Oh yeah, not really anything memorable happened, but it was really just the two fighting back and forth, and yeah, and like I said, Chrissy Hemme for her by her standards, this really was a pretty decent match, yeah. And then it ended with a Chrissy Hemme trying to go for a roll up on Victoria, but Victoria was able to counter the sunset flip. Yeah, and then Victoria then was able to pin Christy Hemme by holding onto the ropes. So yeah, so Victoria ended up beating Christy Hemme. So yeah, so like I said, it wasn't really that good of a match, but it wasn't awful. And for a Christy Hemme match, it actually was a pretty decent match. So yeah, so I guess I'd probably give that match around I guess I'll give it 2 stars. Yeah. Yeah. Then after this, then the next match we had Edge versus Kane. Yeah. And this match was okay. Yeah, this really was just a match where it wasn't really good, but great, but it wasn't really bad. But yeah, it was just an okay match. Yeah, it not really anything memorable happened in this match. It was just kind of some standard back and forth action between the two. Yeah, this was just recently after Lita had turned on Kane and aligned with Edge. So yeah, so this was still relatively early on in the Edge and Lita relationship. Yeah, yeah, and yeah, like I said, it just was just kind of standard back and forth action between the two guys. Not really anything memorable, but yeah, it was still an okay match. It was really just the two guys fighting in Kane then was trying to go after Lita at a few points in the match. Then Snitsky ended up getting involved in the match a couple of times. At one point, as I think Lita was distracting the referee, Snitsky got in the ring and attacked Kane. Yeah, and yeah, and as the match just continued, continued, Snitsky then tried to get involved again in the match. While Lita distracted the referee, but then, as Edge then attempted to nail Kane with the Money in the Bank briefcase, Edge ended up accidentally hitting Snitsky, taking him out. Yeah, then Kane ended up choke slamming Edge and pinned him. So yeah, so Kane got the win against Edge. Yeah. So this match, like I said, this was okay. Not really anything too memorable, but yeah, definitely could have been a lot worse. So I would probably give that match about I guess I'll give that like 2.5 stars. Yeah. So so you're probably thinking like by like the ratings I've given like the matches so far, I'm probably thinking like what, how can I actually think that this is really the best Raw pay per view and this is a great show when like I really haven't really said that much about the matches so far, yeah. But here, this is really where like the show really does pick up and really where it does actually get great. Yeah, and this really is where the show gets into high gear. Yeah. Then the next match, then it was Kurt Angle versus Shawn Michaels in the rematch from WrestleMania 21. So of course, this, in the draft that year in 2005, of course, Kurt Angle ended up being drafted to Raw. So this allowed the Kurt Angle Shawn Michaels rivalry to continue on Raw, just like how like Randy Orton ended up being drafted to SmackDown that year, and the Undertaker Randy Orton rivalry continued that year on SmackDown. So I am glad that WWE really did like allow the rivalries to continue that year by having them be on the same show, so the rivalries could continue. And just like WrestleMania 21, this really was just such a freaking awesome match right here. I would definitely say that the WrestleMania 21 match was the better match, but yeah, this still was a really great match. Like this is really just another example of how great both guys really were. You just really did have like some great back and forth action between Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels, just like the WrestleMania 21 match. Yeah, it really did just go back and forth, and there were just so many awesome moments in the match. Like there was a point where the guys were fighting on the floor, and then Kurt Angle at one point gave Shawn Michaels a German suplex on the announce table. And then then it pulled back into the ring, and then at one point Kurt Angle then gave a power bomb to Shawn Michaels into one of the turnbuckles. So there were a lot of points in the match where you really would have thought it might have ended. Eventually Shawn Michaels then tried to battle back, and then at one point as Shawn Michaels was signing up for the Sweet Chin Music, Kurt Angle then was able to counter it by giving Shawn Michaels just a monstrous clothesline. Yeah. And then at one point, as a Kurt Angle tried to hit Shawn Michaels with the Angle Slam, Shawn Michaels then countered it into a tornado DDT, which was a pretty cool moment. Yeah, and both guys just really did getting a whole ton of their big moves in, and yeah, there were just a lot of points where you really would have thought the match would have ended, just like in the WrestleMania 21 match, how there were a lot of moments in that match where you really thought it would have ended, but it didn't. Yeah, and it was the same case here. It really did just go back and forth, and Kurt Angle hit some German suplexes, and he hit the Angle Slam at one point, and yeah, Shawn Michaels hit some of his moves in. Yeah, at one point Kurt Angle tried to get Shawn Michaels in the ankle lock, but Shawn Michaels was able to counter it and accidentally threw Kurt Angle right into the referee, knocking him out. And then at one point, Kurt Angle ended up throwing Shawn Michaels out of the ring again, and it looked like Shawn Michaels may have gotten hurt right there. And as the trainer and the doctor were coming out to try to check on Shawn Michaels, Kurt Angle just shooed them off and put Shawn Michaels back in the ring. Yeah, and the guys really just continued to go at it. There was this point where Kurt Angle had Shawn Michaels in the ankle lock for what seemed to be 2 minutes, kind of similar to the end of WrestleMania 21 match. Yeah, and the guys really just continued to go back and forth, and then eventually at one point Shawn Michaels then hit a Sweet Chin Music on Kurt Angle, but Shawn Michaels was not able to capitalize on it at first. But then when Shawn Michaels was finally able to cover Kurt Angle, and Kurt Angle kicked out. And then as Kurt Angle then tried to go to the top, uh, to dive down on Shawn Michaels. As Kurt Angle was coming down, Shawn Michaels then hit another Sweet Chin Music on Kurt Angle, and then that allowed Shawn Michaels to pin Kurt Angle, and Shawn Michaels got the win. So Shawn Michaels got a return win from WrestleMania. So that's another reason why I don't think that this match really is as great as the WrestleMania 21 match. I personally did like it better with Kurt Angle winning rather than Shawn Michaels. But that's still I'm not really gonna penalize the match for Shawn Michaels winning because that's like it's just fine. That he won. I just really did prefer it more with Kurt Angle winning. Yeah. So yeah. Just like WrestleMania 21, this really was just like such an awesome match once again. It wasn't as great as WrestleMania 21, like I said, but yeah, it was still overall a really great match. Yeah. And of course, like this rivalry did continue throughout 2005 and even going into 2006. These guys, of course, like had the Iron Man match later on in the year on the Homecoming episode of Raw in October that year. Yeah, and of course, like they also did have a match in January 2006. It's on Raw as well. So this rivalry really just continued on and off throughout the rest of 2005 and going into 2006. Yeah, but yeah, this still really was just a really great match. So I would give that match 4.5 stars. Awesome match right there. Yeah. And then after this, then we got like a segment where Lillian Garcia came out and then like she asked Viscera to come out. Yeah. This was still like during that time where we had like that whole romantic stuff between Lillian and Viscera that was going on for the last couple of months here. Yeah. Then yeah, and you just had like a little Lillian Garcia, just like expressing her feelings towards Viscera and singing him a song and all this stuff. Yeah, then she ended up popping the question to Viscera, asking him to marry her. Yeah, but before Viscera could actually give an answer, then you had the Godfather coming out with his ladies. Yeah, and yeah, and then Godfather really was just asking Viscera if he really does want to dedicate his life to one woman or if he wants like a whole bunch of women in his life. Yeah, and yeah, and then as like a Godfather really was asking Viscera what he wanted to do, Viscera then and ultimately ended up choosing Godfather's way. So Viscera ended up rejecting Lillian Garcia and just going with all of Godfather's women and leaving with them, as Lillian was just in the ring, crushed and crying. Yeah. So yeah, me personally, I really wasn't a fan of this whole stuff with Lillian Garcia and Viscera. So I guess in a way, I was kind of happy to see Viscera make this decision and this whole romantic connection with Lillian was put to an end. So yeah, so I don't know. I guess this probably really didn't have to be on the show, but I mean, yeah, I guess it served its purpose, and yeah, and it put an end to that whole Lillian Garcia and Viscera stuff. So yeah, so I guess it was fine. Yeah. And then next up, then we had the WWE Championship on the line in a triple threat match. It was John Cena defending against Chris Jericho and Christian. Yeah, and of course, this was John Cena's first pay per view on Raw. So yeah, so I guess this is known for that for John Cena. Yeah, and this overall was a pretty good match as well. Yeah, I guess it was a smart move to really have this match be a triple threat match because yeah, at this time John Cena really was not that great in the ring. So yeah, if he was given a one-on-one match with either one of the guys, it probably wouldn't have been all that great. But yeah, they did a smart thing putting both Chris Jericho and Christian in the match. Yeah, and this really was a pretty good match right here. All three guys got in a lot of offense in the match. Early on in the match, of course, Tyson Tomko, who of course was in Christian's corner, he got involved a couple of points early on in the match. But yeah, then when the referee ended up catching Tomko getting involved and ended up ejecting him from the match. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, and like I said, all three guys got in, some good offense in the match. At one point, as a John Cena was fighting with Christian, John Cena FU'd Christian out of the ring. Yeah. Then as the three guys were fighting on the outside of the ring, as Chris Jericho tried to suplex John Cena onto the announce table, John Cena countered it and DDT'd Chris Jericho right onto the WWE Championship. Yeah. Yeah, and throughout the match, there were some double team moves in the match. Chris Jericho and Christian, of course, were trying to double team John Cena at numerous points in the match. Yeah, and John Cena was able to get in a couple of double moves of his own on both Chris Jericho and Christian. At one point, he hit both of them with the five knuckle shuffle at the same time. Yeah, and yeah, and then at one point, like as a Christian like distracted the referee, Tyson Tomko came back and attacked John Cena again. Yeah, there was this one cool spot where I think it was Chris Jericho that tried to give a superplex to Christian, but John Cena also then a powerbomb Chris Jericho. So we had the whole thing where both moves connected at the same time with John Cena powerbombing Chris Jericho as Chris Jericho gave Christian a superplex. So yeah, so that was a pretty cool spot. Yeah, and yeah, and it just kind of go back and forth between all three guys. At one point, Chris Jericho actually had John Cena in the walls of Jericho, but Christian ended up countering it into one of his moves. Yeah, then it had a nice finish where as a Christian was trying to go after Chris Jericho shoved Christian, and Christian ran right into John Cena, and then John Cena got a Christian up for the FU, and then to stop Chris Jericho from doing anything, as Chris Jericho was running at John Cena, John Cena swung Christian's feet into Chris Jericho to knock him down, and then John Cena delivered the FU to Christian and pinned him. So yeah, so John Cena ended up retaining the WWE Championship. So yeah, so like I said, that was a pretty good triple threat match, and it was a smart thing to really put both Chris Jericho and Christian in the match, since John Cena probably couldn't have worked this match on his own in a one-on-one match. So yeah, so they did a smart thing by doing that. Yeah, and it really was a pretty good match. So I would probably give that about 3.5 stars. Yeah, and then we got the main event, the World Heavyweight Championship on the line in a Hell in a Cell match. Batista defending against Triple H. So yeah, so of course, this was the culmination of the Batista Triple H rivalry. Batista won the World Heavyweight Championship from Triple H at WrestleMania 21. Yeah, then in the rematch of Backlash, Batista defeated Triple H again. Yeah, and this then it then culminated here inside Hell in a Cell. Yeah. And what can I say? I mean, this really was a pretty great match right here. Yeah, this was definitely the best of the three matches that they had. I said before, how WrestleMania 21 really was just a kind of a letdown, and really should have been a lot better than what it was. Yeah, the match they had at Backlash was better, but it still really was not anything that spectacular. Yeah. But here, yeah, they really did give us a great match here. This really was definitely the best match of the trilogy. Yeah, I guess this is a case where the third time is the charm. Yeah, and they really did give us a great match right here. Yeah, the whole story going into it was really great, and yeah, and they really did deliver here. You really did just believe the true hatred that did it'll boil up between the two. You hear it, yeah, and of course like uh this was still when a Triple H going in, Triple H was undefeated in Hell in a Cell matches. So yeah, so you just really were really wondering who really was gonna win. Yeah, and there are some people that really do say Triple H's reign of terror was still going on up to this point, but it wasn't. Triple H's reign of terror ended at WrestleMania 21 when he lost the title to Batista. Just because Triple H was still challenging for the title doesn't mean it was still his reign of terror. So yeah, it was over by this point. But yeah, this really was just such an awesome match. It was really brutal and violent. Like just oh man, this match just had so much brutality in it. The cell was used as a weapon at a whole bunch of points in the match. And it's Triple H got busted open relatively early on in the match, yeah. And yeah, and there was a lot of weapon use in the match as well. First, Triple H brought a chain into the match and was using the chain as a weapon on Batista. Then eventually Batista then used the chain on Triple H. Yeah, yeah. Then at one point, then Triple H brought in a steel chair wrapped in barbed wire, which I really did find that to be an interesting weapon. This is the only time I've actually seen that be used as a weapon. I've never seen another match where they have used a steel chair that's wrapped in barbed wire, so I thought that was an interesting weapon for this match, yeah. And yeah, and of course, yeah, Triple H nailed Batista in the back a couple of times with the barbed wire chair, yeah. But then eventually Batista and was able to battle back, and Batista then nailed Triple H with the barbed wire steel chair. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and there were like just a whole bunch of times in the match where, just like Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels, you really didn't know who was gonna win. Like there were times where you really did believe that Triple H may have won. Yeah, but yeah, Batista like survived, and he survived a lot of the points where it looked like Triple H may have won or may have had won. Yeah, and yeah, then it just like continued, and like eventually Batista ended up getting busted open. Yeah, and yeah, then eventually Triple H then ended up bringing in a sledgehammer here, of course, in the match. Yeah, and yeah, then Triple H tried to hit Batista with the sledgehammer, but eventually Batista battled back, and then Batista then nailed Triple H with a sledgehammer. Yeah, and yeah, then at one point, as a Batista then like had the sledgehammer, as he was like going like charging at Triple H with the sledgehammer, Triple H nailed Batista with the chain again. Yeah, yeah, and yeah, then when it looked like when it seemed that that was going to be it. That as Triple H went for a cover on Batista, Batista ended up kicking out again. Yeah, and yeah, then and Triple H then like tried to go to the top of the turnbuckle and tried to uh, dive down onto Batista, driving the chain into him. But as Batista was down, Batista still had to hold the sledgehammer, and as Triple H like dove down, Batista like held the sledgehammer up and drove it right into Triple H's throat. Yeah, and you just saw like blood oozing from the mouth of Triple H, and Triple H was kind of just like standing there for a few seconds before collapsing. Yeah. Then like there were some points where Batista threw Triple H back first onto that barbed wire wrapped steel chair. Yeah, and yeah, then eventually then Batista then nailed Triple H with the steel steps. Yeah, and yeah, then uh, Batista then mm, like brought the steel steps into the ring, and then he threw Batista, Triple H into the steel steps. Yeah, and yeah, then at one point then as Batista tried to go after Triple H more, but Triple H then hit a low blow on Batista and gave him the pedigree. It looked like that may have been it, but Batista survived that. Yeah, and yeah. Then Batista eventually ended up like as Triple H was attempting to pedigree Batista on the steel steps. Batista reversed it and gave Triple H like a huge spine buster onto the steel steps. Yeah, and then Batista eventually then gave Triple H a Batista bomb, but it looked like Triple H may have actually was actually going to nail Batista with the sledgehammer because as Batista hoisted Triple H up, Triple H had actually gotten a hold of the sledgehammer, and as he was setting up to hit Batista with the sledgehammer, before he actually could connect, Batista delivered the Batista bomb. Yeah, and then after that, then Batista then was able to pin Triple H, and Batista won the match, and Batista retained the World Heavyweight Championship. So Batista beat Triple H 3 straight times on pay per view. So this really did truly cement Batista as as the next star of the company, or at least that's how it appeared. And this was like I just said, Triple H had never lost Hell in a Cell up to this point, and so this was Triple H's first loss in Hell in a Cell. So it was a pretty big deal, at this time. So what can I say? This really was just such a great match. You just had so much brutality in the match, and you just really didn't know who would win because you really just go back and forth, and there were a whole bunch of points where you would have thought it would have ended. So really great match right there, and a nice way to really conclude this rivalry. Yeah, and of course Batista and ended up being drafted to SmackDown on the following episode of SmackDown 4 nights later. So this was I did kind of like how they played this out where you had Triple Batista finished the rivalry with Triple H on Raw, then ended up going to SmackDown. So I did like the way that they handled it. Yeah. So this definitely was a really great match once again. I would probably give that match a 4 1/4. So yeah, definitely great Hell in a Cell match. I would probably definitely say that this is in top 10 Hell in a Cell matches of all time. Really awesome match. Yeah. So overall with the show, I guess I would probably give it a 9 out of 10. This really was just such a great show. Like I said, you really just like had like a pretty solid show all throughout. The first three matches were not really any not that great, but they weren't awful. But yeah, it really just pick up in the last three matches, especially with the Kurt Angle Shawn Michaels match and the Hell in a Cell. Like both matches were really great, and the WWE title match also was really good as well. So yeah, so just what can I say? This really was just like such an awesome show, and yeah, and like I said, I would definitely say this was the best Raw pay per view of all time, and yeah, like I said, another example of just how awesome Raw really was at this time. So yeah, so definitely worth a watch if you haven't seen it. So give it a watch if you haven't seen it before. All right, so I guess this is all I can really say about it. All right, so this is a review of Vengeance 2005. So I hope you guys did enjoy this review. Yeah, and like I said, there are like a couple of other pay per views that I do want to review as well, and those are the other Bash at the Beach pay per views. Like I've already talked about pretty much like all the Bash at the Beach pay per views, but there are like two more left. So yeah, so I figured rather than just reviewing one this year and one next year, I figured I would just get them both out of the way. So yeah, so I'll also be reviewing the last two Bash at the Beach pay-per-views I haven't talked about yet. So yeah, so those are probably gonna be like my next two videos. So yeah, so stay tuned for the Bash at the Beach reviews coming before July ends. Yeah. All right, so yeah, so stay tuned for those reviews coming up sometime later this week as well. All right, but I hope you guys did enjoy this review. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.